Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Teacher Talk, the podcast. I have the privilege of talking to Mr. McLarnon today for my 5th episode. So if you would say hi really quick.
Hello, everyone.
Mr. McLarnon is a teacher of almost every science elective that we offer here, I feel like. That being anatomy and physiology, marine biology, ecology, environmental studies, and normally biochem, but we don't have it this year. He's also the head coach of the varsity boys soccer team, and he has perhaps the best sense of humor out of all the teachers.
Oh dear.
I'm going to say that. And never fails to get our class laughing with the wild stories, ranging from master stories to soccer injury stories. And that's why I thought you would make a great guest on the podcast.
Pressure's
So thanks for being willing to do this. I'm going to start with some silly icebreaker questions that I wrote.
All right.
So I hope you enjoy. First question is animal related because, you're a big fan of animals. So if you had to be an animal species that you've taught about in any of your classes, what would you be and why?
Oh, man. You're right. I should have read these ahead of time. I probably could have thought of a better answer to that. You know what? Speaking of, am I close enough to the mic here? Do we know if it's picking up?
Just a little. That's good.
I'm going to go with the honey badger.
Okay.
You know, those jokers, they might be somewhat smaller than a grizzly bear or something like that, but, I've seen videos of a honey badger, poke at a bear, and the bear walked away. So, also the nickname of one of the best rugby players, Nick Cummings.
Honey badger.
The honey badger.
Yeah, I feel like we've had some Nick Cummings content in class before. I feel like I remember that. That's a great answer, though. That's really funny. Okay, next question relates. Are you trying to read them upside down?
Yeah, I am. I'll stop.
I have a sheet for you.
There we go. I won't. Okay.
There you go.
I won't cheat too.
No. It doesn't matter.
I wanted to be a spontaneous.
You can look at them. So next question relates to your childhood, which we've all heard a bunch of funny stories about. But what would you say is the most, quote, Georgia thing about your childhood?
Georgia thing about your
Take
childhood.
that as you will. I don't know.
The sheriff knew all of our names.
Okay.
We could say that much. He was a Andy Fife type, Andy Griffin type character, and he knew me and about 5 or 6 other guys by our first name. So, other Georgia. I mean, what sums Georgia childhood up is you grow up cutting down trees and telling lies.
Right.
And that's about the extent of it.
And did you live in a small town, or was it Augusta that you grew up in?
Augusta, it would be similar to here, Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And Chapel Hill.
Okay.
And so Appling, Georgia was kind of the Pittsburgh to Augusta, Georgia. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And next question. I said I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but I feel it's a PG question.
Hey,
so what I'm asking you to do is describe your dream pint of beer, name it, and what it tastes like.
Oh, dream pint. That's very environmentally contingent here. If we're on a beach here in the next month or so, it's definitely gonna be. I guess if we're on a beach here in a month or so, there's a small brewery in Athens, Georgia, right next to UGA called Creature Comforts, who makes a pint called Tropicalia, which is probably one of the best brands of that particular type of pale ale that they have. In fact, if you watch one of the Avengers movies, which were filmed in Atlanta, right?
Okay.
I think filmed in Atlanta, and the director and all the cast went to Creature Comforts after one of the filmings of it, and they gave the director Creature Comforts Tropical, and he said, "What is this?" And he said, "This is the best thing I've ever tasted." And and so if you watch one of the Avengers, whenever Thor is on his bender and he's overweight and everything, he's holding. Tropicalia
so they did a
from a
plug.
little thing in Athens, Georgia. There.
That's really funny.
But in the fall, or in the winter, I would have to go with Guinness, particularly. Yeah.
When I was in
Guinness,
Ireland, I tried it. I don't know. It's so particular because it's like coffee beer. I don't know.
It's a little tangy too.
Yeah.
You might not be expecting.
Yeah.
If you've never had it before, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
Okay. Next question. I'm guessing you've definitely been on a backpacking trip before,
Right.
but if you were going on a backpacking trip and had super limited space, what are your must-haves that might not seem the most practical to other people?
Yeah, my luxury items.
Yeah.
So I'm not one of those ultralight crazy people. You know, some
Okay.
people like cut their toothbrush in half.
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
I'm saving a half an ounce. I'm like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So given that, but at the same time, I'm not hiking in a cast iron skillet or anything when you're out there. I bring a pillow.
Like a full pillow?
Well, not a full. It's like, you know, usually if you were out there and you would just, you know, put your jacket or something in a bag and you could sleep on it.
It's not enough.
It's
not enough.
Yeah, it's something. I got this little. It's not a full pillow, but it's made for like backpacking.
Okay.
But still, people would be like, "That's completely ridiculous, extra weight to bring." I said, "It's got some memory foam on it."
Oh, that's nice.
I sleep like a baby out there. It's just,
That's great.
Won't leave it behind.
That's great. So the pillow.
The pillow. Let's see. One time, it's not really. I brought these little lights, these little twinkle lights, and it was a good.
The
to be
fairy
honest,
lights.
yeah,
things?
little fairy lights. It was kind of fun to have it around. But,
Yeah.
And then I like to have a bocce set out there, especially when we
Really?
go with students and we go on a trip of 10 or 12 guys. We could play bocce ball at night for 4 or 5 hours.
That's awesome.
And so I would probably trying to think. Yeah, I would say, but my big splurge item would be the pillow.
The pillow. That's great. No, I get that though, because sometimes it's just
nice.
not enough. And then last icebreaker question.
Okay.
What's been your craziest encounter with or sighting of wildlife? Because I know you have some crazy ones.
Oh yeah, we've well, speaking of the backpacking trip, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to think if this is one that would be. When you take my environmental class, you will hear about the story of shooting stars, right?
Yes.
Claire knows what I'm doing. Our listeners might not be too familiar with this system, but essentially you have to poop in the woods at some point if you're out there for more than 3 days. And this one year. Claire's heard this story, but we can tell it for the listeners, right?
Of course.
We heard this. We had this one guy, and it was a guy. He just didn't want to poop in the woods. He just had some kind of fear of it. I don't know. Someone was going to come up and get him. And so he didn't poop for 5 days. And you know, the rest of us, we hiked out, and we were all looking forward to ice cream. And this poor fella just had to go to the bathroom for a few hours, you know. And he kind of had this green tint to him. It was not good. And so the friend that we have out there that leads the trips, Jackson, said, "Hey, you know, we got to make a game out of this." And so we invented the star shooting game. And so you collect the stars, and whoever collects the most stars at the end wins. And so you get 1 star if you just go poop in the woods. You get 2 stars if you go out there and you poop in the woods and you use natural toilet paper. Good news is there's no poison ivy in Colorado, so everything's pretty safe. But there are, you know, preferable cottonelle-esque plants.
Right.
3 if you get out there with natural toilet paper and you have a good view, and then 4 if you see wildlife while you have your view. And then there's the elusive 5-star, which no one has ever got. There's been a couple people that claimed it. But if you go out there and use natural toilet paper, good view, good wildlife, and then the wildlife is also pooping. And so, ironically, this one time, this group, a lot of the girl students on the trip got really, really into it. You know, they're talking. We're like day 3. We're claiming we got 30-something stars. So we might need to have you looked at here. That's not right.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they were really, really into it, and we hadn't seen any wildlife yet this trip, but it was the 3rd day, and I was at the front of the pack, and I kind of hiked down in there, and then this big moose, not probably from there's not a whole. If we're in this little
as
room,
big
let's
as this
say,
room?
Oh no,
Bigger?
The moose is probably at least 7 feet high with the antlers. I mean, this thing's huge.
Yeah.
But from me to, I'd say about 15 feet away. You know, and you don't screw around with moose.
No,
you know,
no, you don't.
They could, and so I just, hey, I'm whispering. I say, wait, guys, and before I could even like calm people down, every single female student in the group ran in front of me, and just started tucking down into the brush, trying to use the bathroom. And I said, whoa, guys. And we had to put an end to it there. I said, all right, no more star
That's
game.
where it ended.
That's where the star game ended. And then the moose just kind of said, what in the world are these crazy people doing? And then trotted off, and no one even got a picture. And so I said, no more star game. No.
That's yeah. It's a great story. Okay, so moving on to a bit longer and more reflective questions.
Sure.
This might be similar to what I asked earlier, but what is one of your wildest or most memorable childhood adventures that you had?
Memorable or wildest? Oh gosh, I feel like that was a close one off of that last story there. I think we've got quite a few wild ones here. I'm trying to think of a memorable one. You know what? I'll go down the master's route here on this one. One of actually my very first memories was I was real young, but my grandmother signed on the waiting list for the badges in the 70s to go into the Augusta National. And so in 97 so 20 some odd years later, was the first time they offered her the badges, to buy the badges. Now it's like 80 years, something insane.
That's the waiting.
You sign it. I think it's actually closed, but if you sign on to it, I don't even know what the point of signing it is anymore.
Because you're just gonna.
And so she got the badges in 97, and I was like, 4 or something. I was real little. But that's like one of the first things of my childhood that like I can remember. Like, can't really remember too much before that. But that was the year that 21-year-old Tiger won it for the first time in his Tiger Red. I remember being out there with my uncles. So that was pretty
that's
cool.
awesome. That's awesome. Like I said at the beginning, you truly teach everything science here. So what drew you to science in the first place, and what led you to eventually becoming a science teacher?
Yeah, I think just kicking around in the woods is what, that's what we did we would obviously hunt and fish, but a lot of us, we would just, a normal day after school for us, if we weren't playing football or soccer, is we would get on four-wheelers and, everybody would meet up somewhere, and then we'd just drive around and hang out in the woods, and pretty soon you do that for long enough, you start to know everything, and we kind of had this folk knowledge, and then it's just like anything else. I guess you start to read Reddit threads and stuff, and like actually start to figure out like, oh, that's not a periwinkle, whatever we called it. That's a this, and then so we started to become kind of more than just these folk knowledge people. We actually had a pretty decent idea of forestry and wildlife conservation, and so when I went to college. When I went to college and I took it seriously, so second time around, I was a forestry major, and so simultaneously I'm kind of, my family has a good amount of land, but my grandfather was the one who used to manage the forest, and so I kind of inherited that role, and so I was doing a little bit of forestry, and kind of learning about it and taking that path. But then simultaneously, I also tried my legs at pre-med and like research PhD and stuff like that. Not for me. I mean, it's interesting stuff, but I just,
sure.
didn't like being in a lab or in a doctor's office for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so simultaneously me doing this, I've started my coaching career. And so I was just reading through a couple of these. I'm sure I'll mention them down the line, or this is down the line here. One of my really big mentors was Mike Freese, who was the current head coach at the school that was nearby the college I was at.
Okay.
And so while I'm doing my undergrad work, I start kind of helping assist coach at this one school. And as it were, I mean, obviously that's super fun and enjoyable. And so the way things kind of panned out were by the time I was graduating and was honestly applied to several different programs, you know, and one at UGA and one at Clemson. But at the same time, a ecology and a biology teaching position opened up at the school I was coaching. And I said, well, you know what? Why don't we just give this a try here?
Yeah,
You know, and and so it did it the first year and loved it. And so that's so at that point in time, I said, hey, I guess this is my thing, you know, and it was. And so there on out, I've just gone with it. And another mentor, not him, one of the interesting things that they would always tell me was, you won't know if you like or hate this job for sure for 4 years. I said, oh, goodness gracious, that's another college year. You know. But at the same time, never gone away. I've always loved it. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And like we mentioned before, that you now coach the boys varsity soccer team at Trinity here, and it's an important thing to you. So what do you love most about coaching soccer? Has it taught you anything about life or faith?
For sure. Honestly, I think and part of my mission field, I think, is the strongest when we talk about coaching and soccer in general. You know, going through, you know, just normal education. I grew up going to church, you know, and like baptized in the 3rd grade. And as a lot of you guys know, sometimes that can get kind of dulled. And you can, and then actually going into college where you're almost this freedom of thought and all of these new ideas out here, and especially in the natural sciences where you're, you know, and well, in science in general, you're searching for this kind of truth in everything with a little t. And so you get caught up in that. And it actually was coaching and you know, working with Mike that really kind of showed me what it means to have a faith in the way of Jesus and that kind of stuff, and revamped that, but also practically applied to like what you know, how do you actually act and live? And I think it's, for me, a soccer season is one of the best. And I'm an example guy. I struggle, as you know, I struggle to explain things in vaporous, abstract form. You know, especially in smaller words. Okay, and so for me, soccer is like this concrete process that very well embodies the way of Christianity and how we should treat others and how our relationships should be formed, and our relationship with God. And so I learned that there. And so that, to me, has been a major part of my mission moving forward as a coach to help. And, you know, it might not be for everybody on the team, but I'm sure there's a couple chuckleheads just like me out there that might be the thing that they latch on to.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I do that.
That's great. And do you have a soccer story that you love the most? It could be when you played, or even from now, like coaching now.
Oh, I think the last minute goals are always, either equalizers or last minute winners are always sort of the most fun one. When you think about recently here, one of the nail biter, I call him Ferguson endings for the old Manchester United coach. So let's see, not this past season, but the season before that, we had our conference championship. Basically, we had to win the game to be conference champions, or if we lost it, or if we tied it, I don't think we would have won.
Okay.
And so I believe it was, we're talking 4 or 5 minutes left in the match, and Tristan goes up and tucks one in the far corner, and then as it went on, speaking of honey badgers, that was what I called Grayson, and so they had a really good player of the year. There.
What team? Who
this
was
was Apex.
Okay.
Thales Apex.
Okay.
Yeah. And he gets in behind us, and there's 30 seconds left. And so this is actually not a last-minute goal, which is rare. Something else. 30 seconds left, and I think he cuts inside on Ryan or Andrew. I said, "Oh boy!" I felt my butt cheeks clench. I said, "Here we go!" Right? Then I start. I'm already thinking through overtime. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And then Grayson, the honey badger, pops out of nowhere, like out of his burrow, right?
Yeah.
And just stops this shot on a rope with his chest.
Oh my god.
And then didn't. I mean, this goal was going, overnight. This was gonna score, and just out of nowhere, stopped it with his chest. I don't think I've ever seen a last-minute block like that that's been as celebrated like a goal.
That's awesome.
20 seconds later, they blew the whistle, and we got out of there with a conference championship. So it was a lot of fun.
That's that's awesome. And it makes sense that it was Grayson too. That just that checks out. Okay, so next question. I try to ask a couple faith-related questions per episode to keep that Trinity theme, And I also feel like for me personally, some of the moments I feel closest to God have been in nature.
Oh, yeah.
So have you ever had a moment in nature or science that made you stop and feel the presence of God?
For sure. I think I always have kind of two experiences whenever I'm out in nature, without to get too philosophical or anything, the idea of sublime and beautiful experiences, certainly. And so every time I go out there, I have, a beauty and have this appreciation for creation.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, those sublime experiences that you have, kind of more extreme, and it's almost kind of this, reveals the limited capacity you have here and the capacity that you have when you have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And those take place more. A particular one that happened recently was we were trying to actually summit 14,000 feet, Storm King out in Colorado. And I remember we actually started the journey to get up it. And then just weather comes in at the drop of a hat. And we had students with us. And, we have to be safe and think of safety first and foremost. But, and a lot of people die trying to go up on these summits as soon as this weather hits. But, getting up there and then, you're on the edge of what is safe and not safe anymore. And so a lot of times in those experiences, it's not what you think of this beautiful sunrise. It's actually the exact opposite. But in moments like those, I always reflect a little bit about our kind of limited capacities as humans and what it means to be, connected and have, a creator that actually fills you with that capacity instead of just you out there, trying to battle it. So
that's great.
Recently, I've been contemplating that a good amount. So.
Yeah, I feel like I went to the Grand Canyon when because I lived in Arizona.
Yeah.
So we went to the Grand Canyon, and I remember like being like so scared because it's scary. Like
You don't
there's
understand.
no railings. There's
No.
no and the weirdest thing is walking down is so much scarier than walking up because you're just seeing like this giant, and I'm like I'm one wrong move and I'm actually like could die.
Oh yeah.
Like,
There's a gust of wind.
but I feel like in moments like that, it's where like you really like think about stuff like that. Like
Right.
it's like this beautiful place, but also it's like I don't know. It's like there's an
Yeah.
element of like fear
It's
and
almost
wonder
tough to
in it.
explain until you're out there in those
Yeah.
situations. No, the Grand Canyon. That's another one too. That is the Angel's Landing one there. That might be a different wherever that skinny
Yeah.
little part is.
I don't. have no
I
idea.
could be wrong too, but
Yeah,
that's another place. Grand Canyon. I think people think that's just a tourist attraction. But
Yeah,
that
people
place-
hate on it sometimes, but it is really cool.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and that people die out there too.
Yeah. Okay. And staying in like the similar vein of question,
Mm-hmm.
I have a vivid memory of seeing some of the like photos you took on our first day of ecology class
Right.
last year and being like, wow, like I want to go there, like all these like national parks and stuff. So, what does it feel like to explore some of the most beautiful places in the country? And would you recommend that everyone get out and explore the natural world at some point?
Yeah, most definitely get out and explore. I as you know, in our classes, I'll show those pictures and say,
Yeah.
like, guys, you're at the prime time right now. I wish
Yeah.
I would have thought about been smarter, like you guys, and go get a van or get something and use your summer and just get out there for a week. And I think the problem was that we ran into is you got to be 24 to rent a car. But there's got to be a way
Yeah.
around it. I'm sure there's a way you can do it. But definitely go explore. One of my most beautiful places, gosh, yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's tough to really nail down. I mean, Yellowstone is unique, and like you've got the prismatic springs and a lot of these features. It's almost alien, and it's neat to see. But that is almost a tourist attraction one. There's
Right.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there was a head-on collision yesterday morning from one of the tour buses there outside of the park.
Yikes.
It's not, but that place is packed with people.
Yeah.
But as far as my favorite, it's actually just good old Rocky Mountain National Park, which it's just mountains, really.
Yeah.
But you can fly into Denver, and then it's just an hour drive, and you can fly fish out there. You can hike, backpack, whatever you want, and it's not like most of these places you would have to fly in somewhere and then drive like 8 or 9 hours, which is not. I mean, you could do it, but so Rocky Mountain or Glacier. Glacier is.
I really want to go there.
That's a farther drive.
Yeah.
But that one you feel like you're just out there in it, so it's pretty stunning.
Yeah, and my parents they're going to Banff in the fall, and I'm so jealous because obviously I'm not gonna be able to go with them.
Right.
But that's also like on my bucket list because it's like gorgeous.
You see all the pictures and stuff
yeah.
on. Sometimes you see one picture and then you see the behind the scenes photo and you see that long
true.
line, and so I don't know. I don't know if it's more
Yeah.
like Yellowstone or if it'll be more, glacier-esque as far
Right.
as population. But regardless, I
Yeah,
want
it's
to get out there.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, last like bigger question. I wanted to ask something related to your role as like anatomy teacher, but also just your view on like what a healthy lifestyle looks as someone who constantly stays active. So as someone who teaches about the human body and how it functions, what do you think is most important to staying healthy, both mentally and physically, especially for high schoolers who are in crazy times?
Yeah. I gotta be careful with this question because this is the perfect setup for like one of those jokers on the Joe Rogan podcast that
Right.
says like, I wake up every morning and use dopamine water to heal
Those
my whole
videos
body.
it's so funny. Like there's this one I'm thinking about, and
Yeah.
it's like this like influencer, and he wakes up and there's just like 20 pill bottles, and he just takes all of them.
Solano brought him up the
Yeah,
other day.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
and when he does like blood transfusions
Yeah,
with
and
his
it's like,
son,
okay, something's not right here.
that guy's a nutbag. He's like 50 something too, and he looks like he's 30. So I mean, there's something to
but it's
it,
kinda
but
scary.
I don't think he has anybody that like likes him and wants to be around him. I mean, I think for me, I mean, it all, if you wanted to do one thing that everything else follows, in my opinion, it's to stay plugged into a community, and usually everything else follows, both mentally and physically. I mean, you think about it.
That's
If that weird guy was in a friend group here
They'd be
at
like,
Trinity, they'd be like,
"What are
dude, you
you
need to slow down, eat a piece of pizza, right, and relax,
Yeah.
In the same vein, if someone was, looked bad and they were obviously like not getting the right nutrients, then you might say, hey man, why don't you come here to dinner? We'll feed you.
Yeah.
What do you need? And same thing with like physical exercise too, where very difficult whether you're running around, doing a play, or if you're out, playing a sport. You're getting your exercise in. It's very tough to be a part of a community and not be doing
that's really
stuff.
true.
And the same, obviously, mental goes. I mean, I pretty much stand by most of that stuff. Most problems people are having, kind of behaviorally, that stem from mental things, come from some sort of lack of community. Especially things like when we talked about the nervous system and everything, when we were chatting in class about addictions and things like that. I mean, to me, it seems, as far as when substances in that world, pretty much if you abusing that kind of stuff stems from just not feeling like you belong, not being part of a community or something like that. So that might be a weird answer to that question. But it's just, if I was going to say one thing that everything else would follow, I think that would be my go-to there.
Great. Okay, now for just some couple closing questions.
Okay.
Starting off with, what's your favorite part of being a teacher, and would your high school self be surprised by the fact that you ended up here today?
My high school McLarnon would have been just like, what are you talking about? No. And like I said earlier, it was, it happened on the, flip of a quarter here. It was kind of like one day I'm this, all of a sudden, here. But, life's like that. And so I would definitely be surprised. And I think, I've got several favorite parts. Sometimes they bring us free chicken minis, and that's the best part. Hands, no, I'm just kidding. That's a good part. But obviously, it's. I don't think I could ever, go do another kind of knowledge worker thing that would require you to just be nose to the grindstone. You might. There's a lot of people smarter than me, and there's a lot of people, that can do a lot more work, but you do it by yourself, or maybe through communication with like colleagues. This is just one of my favorite parts, is just being able to interact with you guys, the students, and share stories and walk around. And I think philosophically, as an educator, for me, I hold experience in very high regard, and so focus very highly on what the overall experience of high school is for and are we making it a good experience for you? And interestingly enough, and it goes back into my thinking of and philosophy and ideas on Christianity, it's doing that actually both brings joy, but also part of a calling, a purpose, and things like that. So,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And as you know, graduation is now 16 days from today, which it could come faster, please. I'm ready. But anyways, what's one lesson you hope your students remember even long after we graduate?
Let's see. I could go with I'll go with we talk a lot about this in soccer, maybe let's say bidding classes, but I think it's really important to and I probably any soccer guys listening to this are probably going to roll their eyes at me here, but using setbacks. I think failing and making mistakes and the experience, as I said, of making those mistakes and learning from them is of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
And so one lesson that I would want you to take is, go out there and do stuff and fail. Be willing to be the fool, because it's not only will you get, and I'm still the fool, but you get a lot of fun stories,
Right.
but at the same time, it's how you grow. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And this is kind of similar, but for final question, do you have an idea or quote that you live by and want to share as we end?
Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Tongue twister. What is it?
Prior proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
What does that mean?
It just means, put in the effort on preparing for something, and usually your performance, whether
That's
it's
true.
teaching a lesson in there, it's not a very philosophical one to end on,
Nope,
but it's a practical one.
No, it's true. I felt that this year a lot of in my classes actually. Well, okay, guys, that wraps up episode 5. Thank you so much for being willing to do this. It means a lot that you're able to take time out of your day and record this with me, and I hope you enjoyed it too.
That was fun.
And thank you everyone for listening, and hopefully I'll be back with potentially the last episode of the series next week.